So, hey, man, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute after the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it.
So, as you mentioned, there was a little bit of a slowdown coming out of Austin with the real estate market.
Yeah.
I'm curious, getting through this pandemic, how many ripples from that time period took place that you're still feeling the effects for now? Are you still feeling the effects of that time period?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cost of living in Austin spiked so quickly, and couple that with just general inflation for the cost of just normal goods. We got into a scenario where uh, most families felt financial pressure, whereas when things were really good and Austin was booming and all the small businesses were thriving and there was no sickness in any of our economy.
Yeah.
Uh, it was just it was a lot more free, a lot easier, and now people are very conscious now of the cost of living in Austin. And I know all these major cities that experience growth the way that Austin did experience this.
Yeah.
We're just in that moment right now, so
Yeah.
it's a big topic of everyone's conversations.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because all of this stuff is cyclical, and when we hear the big headlines, it usually takes a while for the consumer to absorb it, you
Yeah,
know, and then
yeah,
it becomes a big deal when it
yeah,
hits the streets. So let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis.
yeah.
I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids. It's career day. They're third graders. They're eager, and they're like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" What's your
Yeah.
answer?
Well, I would tell them I'm a leader. All right. I think at the beginning of the day, I lead my family. In the middle of the day, I lead the businesses that we operate. And when I go home, I lead my family again. I think that mindset allows me to be who everyone around me needs me to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I own three businesses. We own a construction company of single family homes. We own a sales company of single family homes here in Austin. And then we own a laundromat franchise that's in West Texas.
Wow.
So those are our three core ways that we make money. And and then my team that surrounds me, we're anywhere from 60 to 75 people week to week, just because things ebb and flow in the laundromat business.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, we lead a lot of families and just take care of people through those core services there.
I love it. So, what did you want to be in the third grade when you were a kid? What was your dream ultimately to grow up and become?
What's interesting is a professional baseball player.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So, and I made that dream happen. I was drafted by the Detroit Tigers, and I played baseball in their minor league system. But I went to West Point for my undergraduate degree. In
Yeah.
that school, they teach you to desire to serve. And so when I graduated West Point in 2005, we were just getting into the heavy lifting of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars.
Yeah.
And so all of my friends from West Point, to include my younger brother, were all engaged in this conflict. And I was playing a sport, which was my dream, and it was a
Yeah.
dream come true. But I ultimately decided to walk away from baseball to go serve the country,
Wow.
and really just be alongside my friends and my brother. And so I had my dream. I made my dream actually come true, and just kind of in the middle of my stride there, decided to shift gears and go into essentially a life of service.
So, I remember when I was in junior high, there was a former athlete that came in the room and he
Yeah,
walked in, he picked up a marker and he put 0.0000136. And he
yeah,
turns around and he says, "What does that number mean?" And we're
yeah,
all like, "I don't know." And he's like,
yeah,
"That's the chance that any of you in this whole building is
yeah,
ever going to be a professional athlete. That's
yeah,
the chance." And
yeah.
it's like, and the reason why I say that to you is, what was that like to be at that high level? What did that teach you about going in the military and in this incarnation of selling and this life as an entrepreneur? What did that teach you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that comes immediately to mind is I was blessed growing up to never be the best. I tell my kids all the time, Daddy was never the best until the very end. and when you're not the best, when you have people that chase after, you chase them and they show you how good you could be if you just put in the work. And so my whole life, I've been a hard worker.
Yeah.
My high school baseball coach used to say, you can't be a 3 to 5 player. And practice after school was from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And
Yeah.
really what he was saying is if you wanted to make it, you need to put in more effort than just coming to practice.
Yeah.
And so I, from a very young age, I would get up early and work out and run. And then after practice, I'd go home. My dad, we weren't very wealthy, but my parents were very selfless and were extremely good to us, me and my two brothers. And my dad bought this old shrimp net that he hung up in the backyard, and he put a little floodlight back there. And I used to hit off the tee for
Wow.
hours. And so I was always trying to become a better version of myself. And I channeled all that into my athletics. And it paid off. In the end, I ultimately was better than most. And that's why I was able to play professional baseball. But those core lessons learned in life of like, hey, if you want something to be a reality, fate's going to show it where it's supposed to be, but you don't get to hit that unless you put in the work too. It's like you got these two things climbing. One of it's your hard work, and the other one's the gift that you're going to receive. And if you don't put in the hard work, then you'll miss that opportunity to receive that gift. But if you continue to put that work in, your gift will be there and it'll marry. And then that's when you receive your gift, and then at that point, it's yours to steward.
Yeah. So the one thing about being an athlete or anything that you do, it's about
Yeah,
mentors and who you emulate.
yeah.
Who was it in baseball? What was the team? What was the core group of players that like fueled the dream of you being in game seven, leaping around, winning it?
Yeah. So I'm from Pensacola, Florida, which is, the Southeast.
Yeah.
And when I was growing up, I'm 42 now.
Yeah.
Uh, when I was growing up, there was two really televised baseball teams. It was the Atlanta Braves, which everybody wanted
Yes.
to be an Atlanta Braves fan because they were winning the World Series and everything. And then there was the Chicago Cubs.
Of course.
Well, I happen to be a Chicago Cubs fan. So I grew up watching Ryan Sandberg, Mark Grace, Andre Dawson,
Uh-huh.
all these guys that are legends now. But they were the ones that I watched and fell in love with the game with. My number was 23 after Ryan Sandberg, so
Right on.
he would be the guy, I guess. Although I was never going to play a position like he played, but he was the one I kind of looked up to. He was consistent. He was
Yes.
he was steady. He was always there for the team. He just seemed to deliver when people needed him most.
I think when I was a kid, I found out years later that there was a kid that I traded baseball cards with, and I did a sideways deal for a Sandberg rookie, and he still holds a grudge.
Yeah, yeah, I bet he
Because
does.
Sandberg was he was the go-to. A lot of those guys were. I mean, it was like they were the cards you wanted to get, and yeah,
I mean, yeah, he was as steady as they came.
yeah,
Yeah, him.
yeah,
I mean, somehow Mark Grace never had a solid hit in his whole career, but the dude got on base, 2 times out of four every single
always.
game. Yeah,
He was like the Tony Gwynn of the team. It was like he always got on base one way or another. He moved the line. He was the perfect baseball player.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it was man, that was an amazing time to watch baseball.
Yeah.
Those Atlanta Braves and just how good and solid they were, and the pitching staff that they had. That everybody, it just you knew what you're going to get with Greg Maddux, and you still couldn't hit him. You
Yeah.
just hit your 18 ground balls a game, and he walked off after throwing 60 pitches with the W.
Him and Smoltz, they were fire. That's all they did. They mowed people down, you know.
Yep, yep, yep.
And it's
Yeah,
and
pretty
and it's
amazing.
wild to think. I still to this day will hear someone go, "Hey," and I'm like, "Is that Harry Carey?" Like,
Yeah,
having him sing to you every summer afternoon, and then his
yeah.
son Skip was doing Atlanta. It was like the perfect mix of those guys.
Oh, it was amazing. It was shoot. I'll just tell a story for your fathers that listen. My dad. So I had two brothers,
Yeah,
and my dad worked shift work. And sometimes it was the morning shift, afternoon shift, and then he would work the evening shift just overnight. Right, called it the graveyard shift. And one day he was on this shift that he called 3 to 11. The hours that he worked. And he got off work at 11,
yeah,
and he hurried home. And I'm the oldest of the three brothers, and he knew I loved baseball, and he knew I put in the work, and he woke me up in the middle of the night to come watch the end of a baseball game.
that's cool.
And I didn't get a lot of alone time with my father because I had the two brothers, and I remember that to this day. I felt special. I felt like we had that moment together, and man, it thinking about it now makes me emotional. But it was probably another big factor of me just pursuing that dream even harder, just
Yeah.
because my father did little things like that to be a part of it.
And that was such a special time too, because like the Field of Dreams came out, which was the father son bond, that whole era. And
Yeah,
it was just, it's great. They're making good movies. There was good baseball going on. It was good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and we have it today. I mean, I'm in
Yeah,
Texas today, uh,
100%.
and man, if fathers in Texas do anything, they love their sports. So the kids, they're all getting after it. I feel like it's a much more serious
Yeah,
deal now than it was when I was growing up.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of my joys in life to be able to go watch my kids play soccer on the
Uh-huh.
weekend. I mean,
Yeah,
I live for it. I
yeah,
can't think of anything better than to
yeah.
go watch them compete and sometimes win, sometimes lose, but just have fun. I mean, it's an amazing thing to watch.
And it's weird because kids are having Tommy John surgeries. It's like, wait, wait, wait. There's a 13-year-old having Tommy John. And
Yeah,
I think the only thing I love where there's some things in baseball that are happening that people are getting rankled about because it's new and you don't want to mess with the old time. The
yeah,
only thing that gets me is when they split up no hitters. It's like, let that dude finish the game,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
just that's the one thing I'm firm on. Like you want to have a clock back there, you want to expedite, you want to make the bases a little bigger. Okay. But
yeah,
just let the dude get the no hitter. Don't split
yeah,
it up.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you gotta let special things be special,
That's
right? I
it.
mean, don't wiggle your way into something special. Just let it be. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if
yeah.
you get the Willy Wonka ticket, you're not going to split that thing in half and give it you got the ticket.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And you're a professional. I'm a professional. I wouldn't want someone disrupting a once in a lifetime opportunity for my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
I mean, they're athletes, but that's their business.
Yeah.
So let them have their special moment. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just I feel like, yeah. I mean, you just gotta let special things be
That's
special
it.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me
Yeah.
ask you this. What
Yeah.
when you got into real estate, when you segued out of baseball, you went in the
Yeah.
military and you got into being an entrepreneur, what was
Yeah.
the first sale where you were convinced this was the new charter you were going to take in life and you found your calling?
Uh, you know, I don't know that I ever had that moment, Joe. I I was I believe that God put me on this earth to be a warrior. I was very good at the army.
Yeah.
I was good in combat. I was big, strong, and fast. I grew up shooting weapons, so I was good with my weapon, and I thought it was going to be a career for me. But I got married after baseball to the love of my life. We've been married to this day, almost 20 years, and she was a good soldier. She served her country just like I did, by sending me off and really really trusting that I was going to come home alive. And we were 6 years into our marriage, and really she had only been with me probably a year and a half,
Yeah.
physically with me.
Yeah.
uh, I mean, it was true service, and I wanted to have children. So we're 29, 30 years old at this point, and I wanted to have children, and she did too,
Yeah.
but we were still fighting. And I wasn't pumping gas overseas. I did the whole airborne ranger army, stuff. I was in the mix. And she said, look, I want to have children too, but I don't want to have children and you not come home, which was totally fair for her to say. And then she went on to say, I'm going to be with you forever. If this is the life that we choose, I'm going to be with you forever. I'm never going to leave you. But this wasn't how I saw it when we got married. I thought we were going to have a different life, and I did too, right? I mean, nobody knew that we were going to go to war and kind of stay with it at that tempo for as long as we did. And so I made the hard decision to get out of the military because I love my wife more than I love the military.
Yeah.
So it wasn't hard in that what was the right thing to do, but it was hard in that I was shifting gears very, very like a 180.
Yeah.
And so I went to UT here at McCombs School of Business to get my MBA, really to buy me time
Yeah.
because I didn't know what I wanted to be. Uh, and so I went into real estate. I found real estate in the MBA program, and then I went into it, and it was more from kind of the Jim Collins good to great hedgehog concept, right? You take what you're passionate about, you take what you're good at, and then you take what you can make money doing.
Yeah.
And when those three things intersect, that's where you're going to go. And so, uh, yeah, I was good at sales. I sell by educating, and I'm good at that.
Yeah.
Sales makes money, and I'd been interested in real estate. I knew that I didn't want to grow up as humble as I did as a child. I wanted to provide more, at least financially, for my family. And real estate seemed to be an interesting way to do that.
Yeah.
And so I went into real estate, and God blessed me with success pretty quickly. I sold 23 houses my first year, and that's a good year for anybody. Even if you're a kind of a seasoned agent, to do 23 in a year as a solo agent, that's a good year.
Yeah.
So right away I got into it and started producing, and I love being an agent, and I'm good at being an agent, but I love leading more. So for me personally, I went to scale my team as quickly as possible so that I could lead. And I still sell today, but really my passion is in the leading, not necessarily the selling.
Yeah.
And so I like leading a sales company, and that's I think one. If I were to answer your question a different way, when I got my first employee, I got a little bit of that taste of what I had in the military, where soldiers were reporting to me. Now she didn't call me sir like the rest of my soldiers did, but she was a part of the team, and that fire of leading and having a team with you as you're going after a mission and a purpose. Uh, that felt really good, and it was a taste that I hadn't had for a little while since leaving the military, and that's really what propelled me to reach higher levels of success in my career.
Who's been your hero? Who's been that inspiration, bedrock for you?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can tell lots of stories of people that I admire. Um, I read the Bible every morning, Joe, and if you ask me who's my hero, who I want to be like, it would be Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the leader I want to be. Um, but there's lots of men. I was reading about Joe DiMaggio this morning just to get back on our
Nice.
baseball kick,
Yeah.
and that man was extraordinary in
Yeah.
how tough he was and how committed he was to his profession. He played 2,130 games in a row, which was a record that stayed a very long time
Yeah.
in an era where you didn't have a helmet on. Like they told a story about Joe in the book that he was hit by an 80-mile-an-hour fastball in the head, went to the hospital to get x-rays, but didn't miss the next game.
Oh, wow.
You think there's a player out there wearing a baseball hat that would take that hit and then still play the next day? No, I mean he was extraordinary. And they said they took x-rays of his hands, and he had over 17 healed fractures in his hands, just in his hands, and he never missed a game. And so for me, when you talk about overcoming adversity, when you talk about controlling your mindset and the physical aspects of this life, Joe did it better than anybody.
Uh-huh.
The guy was tough as nails, was humble. In the game where Babe Ruth called his shot and hit a
Uh-huh.
home run, Joe DiMaggio hit 2 home runs that game. But
Wow.
you don't hear anything about
No.
that.
No. Uh-uh.
Right? And that's just the humble teammate who, oh, by the way, was an extraordinary player.
Yeah.
Uh, he put in the work. He was a professional. Man, he was tough,
Yeah.
and he had endurance. He had real endurance, and so he would be an individual that I would admire. But if we just talk hero, I mean, I'm after Jesus. That's the
Yes.
one. That's the life I want to emulate.
So let me ask you this. You've met your dream of being a baseball player.
Yeah.
You're at the pinnacle of your field right now, doing very well as an entrepreneur and a real estate agent.
Thank you.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what are you the proudest of? What is the thing that you savor the most?
Um, Well, the thing that I ultimately am most proud of is my 20 years of marriage. I mean, I've we've been through a lot as a couple, and man, we're just a good team. We're a good team, and we still love each other like we did in the beginning. And And I know that's pretty rare. You look at the divorce rate of today, and it's very high. And so I don't take any of that for granted. And so I'm very proud of that. Professionally, I'm proud of the team that I've put together. I've
Yeah.
got some really special people that work for me, and they care about growth, and that they motivate me to be a better version of myself every day for them. And I know that it's special to accumulate a group of people like we've accumulated. So I'm very proud of that too.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Your team does, your family, your friends,
Yeah.
everyone around you, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Uh, so I wrote this book that's going to be published in March 25th of
Yeah.
2025. It's a leadership book. I tell a lot of my stories from baseball and the military, and now in business in that book. And at some point, I had to give it a title, Joe. This book. And I sat back and I thought to myself, what is the gift that I give the world? What do I give my family? What do I give my team? What can I give a random person? And my gift to them is steady. I am steady. And so we titled the book "The Steady Leader," and I believe that everything that we do in pursuit of being the best leader that we can for our teams and for our families is to somewhat put ourselves in a steady position,
Yeah.
because that's where trust is, right? That's where you can depend on somebody. That's where championship teams are made, right? When every player is in the right position, doing the right things at the right time, like that. That's all just steady. And the companies we admire the most are not the ones that go like this, up and down, all the way. It's the ones that grow, and they seem to just grow the same amount every year, and they
Yeah.
just grow into perpetuity.
Yeah.
Like that. That is what I think my gift to the world is I'm steady. I'm
Yeah.
somebody that you can count on, and I'm going to bring the same energy, the same love, the same production every single day.
So if you could get into the baseball time machine, go back in time and see one game with your own
Yeah.
eyes, get into the euphoria, feel it. Where are you going?
Shoot, man. Um, I don't. I mean, I'll
So
say
much.
this: when I was, it's tough.
Yeah.
But I'll tell a story,
Yeah.
and maybe I'd like to just relive this one. Uh, my one of my best friends is my roommate from West Point, and if you know anything about West Point, there ain't a whole lot to do when you're there as a student. I mean, you're
Yeah.
kind of you're
Yeah.
kind of locked in there. And I think our junior year or maybe our senior year, we were able to stream some TV through our computers. We had these desktop computers. It was before laptops and
Yeah.
tablets and everything. And so we had this desktop computer, and they did us a solid, and they ran cable to our rooms, and we could hook that cable up to our computer, right? And we got to, and my roommate's from Boston, and he's a hardcore Red Sox fan. And man, he loved the Red Sox, and they made it to the playoffs. And he was watching a game. We were watching it together, and my Cubs were out. Cubs have been out a lot,
Yeah.
and so the Cubs are out of the playoff hunt, and we're in the World Series. And it's back when Nomar and all those guys were playing,
Uh-huh.
and it was like it was a moment where we were kind of getting late in the game, and it looked like they were going to win, and the stress and the excitement was so high that my roommate just broke out in the nosebleed. he was he was so he was so
Oh, man.
wrapped up into the game and so like on edge that just all of a sudden he started bleeding out his nose, and and I'm like, man, we were that excited
Yeah.
about the game that we were
Yeah.
watching, and it happened to be at West Point in a room that there was no frills. We were watching it on a little 10-inch computer screen.
Sure.
But man, that was the intensity
That's
of the
awesome.
game and how much excitement there was. I mean, the dude broke out in a
That's awesome.
nosebleed because he was so into it.
That's a real fan. When you can bleed for your team, are you kidding? That's it. That's the
Oh yeah,
pinnacle.
he's to this day he's first class. I mean, those
Yeah.
guys, the folks from Boston. I mean, they're all in on those teams.
Oh
There's
man, they
only
do.
one other team, and that's the Eagles fans. The
Yeah.
guys in Philadelphia. I mean, they're all in too.
Oh, 100%. And so if anybody wants to pick up a copy of The Steady Leader coming out in March, they want to hire you, reach out, learn more about you, any of
Yeah.
the good work, where do they go?
Yeah, look, my name, SchuylerWilliamson.com, is an easy way to go see what we're working on, to go order the book. You also can follow me on LinkedIn. Every single morning, I'm doing my professional development, and I take what I read and I recap it and I post it on LinkedIn. And so if you're not a person that wants to read books, you can just follow me on LinkedIn and just read kind of the chapter highlights. So I would think that those are the two best ways to follow me. And look, I'm in real estate sales. It ain't hard to find me.
Yeah,
I'm the Schuyler Williamson in Austin, Texas. That when you do the Google search, I'll pop up.
you're there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skylar, what a joy, man. Thank you so much. It's great to meet you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Have a great holiday season.
Yeah. My pleasure, Joe. God bless you.
Same